Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Economic Development Committee meeting for November. I appreciate you all being here on a second Wednesday, not the first Wednesday of the month. We have a pretty short agenda for today, actually. So we can get started in a second. If you are not a member of the committee, if you could put your name in the chat and your affiliation for record keeping purposes. Cool. So I think we have enough. Well, let me check. I know Andrea said she was going to be late, and Megan as well. Okay, I think we can go ahead and start. So I'll go ahead and take a roll call vote to approve the minutes from last month. So Anisha Stephen, yes. Megan Joy is absent. Alistair?
Yes, I'm here. Yes.
Andrea? No, she's joined yet. Herman? David?
Yes.
Richard?
Yes.
Rodney?
Yes.
And Andrew?
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you all so much. So the only Andrea will give an update to the Arts and Culture Subcommittee when she arrives, but the only real material item to discuss today is the special district and sort of where we are and where we want to go with this. So I sent around a presentation that we had been using, for some of the outreach. We had Andrew and I presented it at Avima, and I'll just sort of go through at a very high level, just sort of where we are, not the content, because that has already, that is the same that we voted on in the resolution. But really, this has been in process for many years. We had in 2019 looked at various ways to look at a special district. At the end of 2019 in November, we worked through geographic boundaries, goals, and general purposes. And then in February of 2020, we put that entire proposal into a resolution, and this committee approved it, and the full board approved it as well. Since then, obviously, since that was in February of 2020, a pandemic began, and we are still in it, and all of the outreach that we had planned on doing and taking on really didn't make sense to do. And ultimately, we had, sort of one real conversation with Avima, and then there wasn't, we weren't sure if we should be doing virtual meetings, in-person meetings, but really back in 2020, the goal was that we needed to do outreach because the public in general, or the community, knew that this committee was thinking about and putting together the idea of a special district, but it was really about getting feedback on what the proposal is, which is in terms of the boundaries and all of the different restrictions on various streets and avenues, etc. So that still is our next step. If the committee would like to continue to move forward in that way. I think there's also sort of the larger context of the city to think about, and it being sort of the end of one administration and soon to be the beginning of another. And this would be still a very long-term project for us, right? We would have to do this outreach and then put together an application and have it go through and present it to city planning. And it would go through, a official process to be evaluated. I don't know if it actually goes through a ULER, but a process to be evaluated and adopted, et cetera. I am not an urban planner anymore, so I don't actually know how it works. And so I think we need to figure out sort of like what our next steps are on this. If it's possible that we should start revisiting it in a formal way in meetings going forward, or sort of really what the plan is. I think there hasn't been a lot of movements on this also because I think it's going to take more than like the committee chair. Is going to take multiple people to sort of shepherd this through. There's a lot of work that goes in this. I wonder if we should, if this is just an economic development committee item or process, or we should think about this in a different manner. So I'll open it up with that to see if there are any thoughts about how to move this forward, or if there is a desire to move forward with this still in like a not still in terms of like not doing it, but in a more immediate way. Richard.
I think everything that you said is very accurate. And the recognition that we have gone through COVID and are still going through COVID, I'm wondering how that has impacted our small businesses. I mean, if we ended up in the last year with a loss of 10% of our businesses, is that going to affect how we look forward on moving ahead with the plan? I just don't know.
Right. So do you think that we need to, sort of get some new information and reassess this plan in order to see if nothing is sort of set in stone in it, right? Like we could propose different things, we could evaluate it differently, and then do outreach related to that, or should we do outreach and ask people, I guess, like what is the best way to sort of move this forward?
Reading through the slides, it was very good. It was a very good summary. I was a little surprised in how much, well, it took a long time, but how much we accomplished once it ended up getting let off. I think we have a strong outline of what we were hoping to do for the neighborhood, for the community. But I think maybe if it's possible, a quick set of numbers that might pop up that might inform us as to whether anything has changed significantly or not.
Laura, I see your hand up.
I apologize for being anonymous here. I'm multitasking and don't want to be distracting. I just wanted to share that, the LAS partnership did a storefront survey in 2019. So we have that pre-COVID snapshot. And in collaboration with Cooper Square and Village Preservation, we just completed in October. That was done in the fall of 2019. It took a few months. We just completed a parallel study, and we literally just only have the raw data, so I can only speak anecdotally. I know we lost like a dozen dry cleaners because that business just got devastated, but we've also brought in a lot of galleries, which is really cool and a great business attraction tool to say galleries are flocking back to the East Village. So I'm hoping we can provide that information relatively soon. I wouldn't want to wait to say start doing outreach to merchants. Because they, first of all, we should listen to what they're saying. And, we lost a lot of people who were on the verge of retirement anyway. And it made no sense for them to go into debt and when they knew they weren't going to have time to recover from that. But we also have a lot of new businesses opening up. Like and people moving, taking advantage of the rent deals that were available in the spring and moving. So it's very interesting. And hopefully we'll, when we think about what numbers you want, and we're going to get on that soon.
I think that would be really helpful to hear. And I think when you have it ready, I think doing a presentation would be really helpful to us. Andrew, I see your hand up.
Yeah, I don't think we should. I think we can have a parallel process. I don't think we should revisit what we've done, because what we did wasn't exclusively by any stretch of the imagination about filling vacant storefronts. It was about creating an opportunity for retail, and I don't think that has changed. We still want whatever storefronts are vacant, because businesses have not survived the pandemic, to be diverse. We don't want all of those storefronts filled by eating and drinking establishments. So it's going to take a long time to point out, Alicia, to get through this process. So looking at where we are now versus by the time we get through this process, I don't even know how relevant that data will be. So what I would recommend is, I think we didn't really, even when we met with the folks from Avima, get into the nitty gritty of what this special district would look like, because we sort of got stuck on, what is a special district? And then we got sidetracked a little bit because folks started talking about the outdoor dining, etc. So I think it's time to just get our proposal back out there, and work through it and hear what people have to say. And we committed to a follow-up with Avima, so I think we should do that, and I'm certainly happy to participate in that again.
Susan?
First of all, I think it's really exciting that EVCC will have that snapshot to show it happen. I had no idea.
Me and my bright ideas.
It's a great idea. I mean, it's great that it happened. Anecdotally, I will say in the East Village, first of all, that many business owners have told me that this area is certainly doing better than many, many other areas. And if you look at our SLA applications, they're every month, it's huge. I mean, we're getting a lot of new businesses. Businesses are expanding into adjacent storefronts, which is exactly what we didn't want. And the other change I see, unfortunately, is more corporate owners as opposed to local independent owners, which is also the opposite of of what we're looking for. I would like to suggest, if you're going forward in any manner whatsoever, that not too long after the new year, meeting be set up with the new borough president, and also revisit with Carlina. Be particularly important to see where she's at in January, because I think particularly without the council member, and she has been supportive, but I would say without the council member, it couldn't happen. And it's also very possible that she might be able to get council land use help.
Got it. So we did
Assuming she's the speaker.
Yeah, that's what I was referring. That's what I was referring
Yeah,
to.
if she's the speaker, she has an enormous amount of resources. So,
but even if she's not there, it's possible to get city council land use.
Sure, absolutely.
Okay, so what I'm hearing is that I think that we still want to find some additional information. So Laura, whenever you're ready, we'd love to have that presentation. But we should also continue to meet with various organizations to sort of get feedback on the actual details of the proposal, because that is the thing that we actually need information from or on. So besides Avima, we had talked about, tenant associations, I don't know if there are other groups that are sort of on the list, but if there's anybody else, we should move forward with scheduling those. But I want to be, I guess, like capacity. I want to talk about capacity in a second. But Andrew, I see your hand up.
Yeah, this is directed more at Laura to refresh my memory. Laura, I thought you had offered through EVCC to try to convene a sort of larger merchant meeting, business owner meeting that was not exclusively, you know, us presenting to the membership.
Yeah,
Avima.
I had.
Is that
Thank you.
fair to say?
Yeah, that I had. Thank you. So Avima is great because they kind of have a regular meeting and a captive audience and a good sampling of members, you know, from different businesses. I think like to have a successful meeting with them where you kind of hone your presentation and are able to get the points across and get feedback from them would be great. And then, you know, there is a much broader list of people we can email and invite. It is challenging to get merchants to leave their businesses. I mean, that's the ongoing challenge with this. So whether we would want to have it just be merchants or whether we would also want to invite residents to that meeting, you might have a better turnout through doing that. But we can talk about that, I think, once most of our merchants are also residents, right? So maybe we can talk about that too once we get, you know, feel like we've got a good line of communication going with Avima and that we've managed to communicate the principles clearly and simply.
And I think the issue with going back to Avima, which we said we would, is we don't want to be a slot on a larger agenda, because
Correct.
we'll just get a few minutes and we'll get lost again. We would want to have that's why I thought, Laura, the larger meeting that included Avima.
That's one way to go.
Or if we're gonna do Avima only, we don't try to squeeze into their board meeting. We set aside a specific time and.
Yeah, I think they were willing to.
You know,
they seemed willing after the last meeting to hold a dedicated meeting to this, whether that's at the same time as a regular board meeting or at a different time. I would let that be up to them, but they were open to that idea, and I think that would be a great next step if they still are amenable.
Okay, Alistair.
Hi, Nisha. Thank you. I had two questions. One is, have we considered having a bid provide their input on this in any way? And the other question I had for you, or if it's not a bid, someone that's involved in the economy or the business development of the area. And the other question I had is, thank you so much for the presentation you emailed out. It was very nice to see that and see the timeline and everything. Was that, because I did miss a meeting or two, was that ratified? When I looked at the goals, there were some things that were a little confusing to me in how the goals were described, that I think could be made clearer. I don't know if that was voted upon and ratified, if that's something that's fluid that we can adjust in some way to make it a little bit clearer. I wasn't sure about that, but I had those two questions. Thank you.
So the goal, like the presentation and how that was put together was reflective of the resolution that we had adopted in February of 2020. And the reason the language is sort of like not funky, but like worded in a very specific way is because it's language that the Department of City Planning has seen in special districts, right? And so those goals were sort of like the common goals that special districts provide or like serve the purposes that they serve. So it is I think that's why it's worded in that way. I think there is the opportunity to sort of finesse some of it as we go on in the process. Like that was sort of the core of what we put together, but when you actually, apply and, go through the process with DCP, there'll be room to sort of iterate, I'm going to assume.
Okay, yeah, no, at some point, it'd be nice to go back and finesse the language a little bit on the
Okay.
goals, if possible. Thank you.
And then,
And
go ahead.
I was going to say, in terms of the bid, Alice, that we don't have a bid, and Lower East Side Partnership doesn't extend into the East Village. We have a Merchants Association, which is Avimo, which is who we presented to and who we've been talking about going back out to present to. So
Okay.
I will add to that though, that while there is no bid there, I think in the Avima comments, there were these questions about what the impact is from an economic
Sure.
standpoint.
Sure.
And so I think that is ultimately going to be one of the questions that the Department of City Planning also has about this. I don't know how to answer that question with the resources and the community board, but I think it is something to think about, and hopefully we can find a way to sort of get some answers on that. Susan, you have your hand up.
Yeah, doesn't this impact Village Alliance?
No, the boundaries don't go, Susan, I don't think the boundaries go far west enough. I know they creep into the east.
They go to
I know
Second
they creep
Avenue.
into the East Village.
They go to
They
Second
do
Avenue.
go that far, but
I-
where do we stop? I thought we stopped at Second Avenue.
I don't remember specifically. I just thought of it. So we probably should look at to make sure whether it impacts them or not, because if it does, certainly they should be invited to a meeting.
Sure.
Yep.
Richard, you have your hand up.
I've been sort of curious about the flow of the discussion. I heard what Andrew said about being concerned that we move the process along, and perhaps less concerned about the specifics. Then I hear Laura saying about the vacancies that particularly hit the dry cleaning establishments. And then I hear Susan saying about the number of liquor license applications that the community board has been receiving. Well, it's not difficult to connect the dots on that and then to flow back to our plan. If our plan way back when was to address the concerns of small merchants and the impact of liquor license establishments, we might be getting hit in the vacancies that have occurred by more liquor license establishments. And if that doesn't impact our plan, I don't know what would.
Andrew?
Yeah, so Richard, that's exactly the point. And I think Susan's comment, my comment, and Laura's kind of tie together. We have a perfect example. We have the Wild Sun, which is on the corner of St. Mark's Place and First Avenue, and next door was a small, I think it was a Asian restaurant, beer and wine only. And the Wild Sun is taking that space and basically moving their current model into that space, downsizing it, and then is going to take their existing space and turn it into a cocktail lounge /
I have something similar on 3rd Street and First Avenue, Andrew.
Right, so just the kind of thing, if we had this in place, we would prohibit. And that tiny little storefront next to the Wild Sun would be available for some other type of business. That's not to say it wouldn't also be a restaurant, but it would be available potentially for another type of business. And now we're just going to have.
Trouble is, this is describing a perfect storm. where we are going to be behind the curve, where a lot of these potentially vacant places will be taken up with liquor licenses, and we will be behind the 8 ball on that.
Well, not necessarily. We have to rely on our SLA committee to, to do what they can and residents to do what they can. I don't think it's inevitable, but yeah, I guess what we're pointing out is some of the things we had in the special district would impact this potential creep of more eating and drinking establishments.
Well, I hope you're wrong, but I don't think you are.
I also just, from my experience working with the city, I still think it's this is a long road, right? Like it's not, I don't think we're actually behind on anything because it'll be up to the next iteration of city planning to look at this. And there's still, I think quite a bit of work that would go into it. So I think from all of the conversation, it means that we want to start doing this engagement in a real way again, probably starting in January with Avima, because it takes time to get on their thing and we want a dedicated meeting. And then maybe after that, we can do, Laura will work with you to set up a broader meeting of merchants and residents to talk through this and workshop it. I think my concern really is about capacity of the committee to sort of take on and do all of this, just in terms of meetings that happen during the day at different times of the day. So I wanted to know if there's anybody who feels like they have the capacity to sort of work with the district office or me or whomever to sort of help move this along.
So I certainly will extend my offer to Anisha to come back to Avima with you, and then as a next step, and then we'll see. As a board member for EVCC, I'll be tangentially involved with whatever Laura does.
Okay.
So.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I just want to be fully clear that this project and the amount of work that it's actually going to take by the past engagement is going to take more than certainly me or the district office. There's going to have to be other people that support on this. And I think maybe in the future, we should consider if land use should also be part of this, maybe to have more people available to do things. I don't know, just something to think about. Alistair?
Hi, Nisha, thank you. Actually, the land use question is a question I've been meaning to ask for a while now, and I've always forgotten to ask it. Why isn't this a land use issue? If we're talking about a special district and zoning, why is it falling in economic development and not land use?
I think really it was that it is sort of a joint thing. But I think as we move along, we might want to consider having more land use folks participate or this move into some joint work.
Right, because I think it's land use. I mean, essentially, in my mind, under my definition, which may not be accurate in any way, I would think it certainly falls more in the land use area than the economic development area.
Andrew, and then Susan.
Yeah, I would disagree with that, and that's because of the history of this, which not everybody sitting on this committee is familiar with. The whole idea of the special district came out of economic development looking at ways which we're charged with to increase and promote economic development in the community. And we decided we wanted to do something to promote diversity and protect the unique character of the neighborhood and the business. And one of the tools in the toolbox was zoning. I'm not saying we shouldn't include land use, and I'm with you, Anisha. I don't, I think we need other members of the committee to engage with this, but I don't want this to get mucked up by the land use committee, and we're reopening this whole process and opening up what we're doing and what we intend to do and how we intend to do it. And that would be my concern, bringing this into land use. But economic development drove this as a mechanism to promote economic development and economic diversity and retail diversity in the community. So
yeah, I mean, I think all of that makes sense. I think my concern is honestly just more of like a capacity issue and less about committees. Alistair? Oh, I guess Susan, sorry, Susan, you had kind of.
Yeah, just to address it procedurally, some boards do put all land use in their, put all planning issues in their land use. CB3 never has. For instance, the tech hub came out of economic development, and the waterfront ULURPs were all in parks and waterfront. And this is actually written into our bylaws very specifically, that we go more by subject matter for the committees. So it can be joint, it can, go across committees, but our bylaws specifically provide for this.
Okay. And Alistair?
Thanks, Susan, for that. Yeah, no, I think it definitely falls on both sides. It definitely ends up being a land use issue, even though it started here. It would just be good to. I assume people in the land use committee will have more experience, more feedback to provide with, changing. We're essentially asking to change the use of the land in a certain way. So, in my mind, it'd be good to get them involved, even though the idea initiated here. It would be good to hear from them, I believe. Thank you.
Richard?
Am I not recalling it correctly? Didn't economic development go to land use at one point when we were presenting this to the board? So we did not, I don't want to say consult with them, but we did make them aware of what we were accomplishing. And in all deference to Alistair, I disagree, because I don't think there's that much in the way of land use, because at that point you're talking about zoning, and we're really not talking about zoning per se. So, I'm very comfortable with it being, if we are going to join with another committee, land use might be helpful, but I still think that economic development would be the lead committee on this.
For sure. I don't think there's any consideration that it would ever leave economic development. I just think as we continue in this process, it might be wise sometimes to consult with land use or,
Sure.
bring in their expertise on certain things.
SLA.
Carmen?
Yes, as a member of the land use committee, I don't see, as a member of this committee, I don't see the issues that you're mostly dealing with now has anything to do with land use. It has to do with storefronts and type of business that is established in the neighborhood. The land use committee already did its job by its zoning that it produces many years ago, but we had nothing to do with whether the size of a store or what business goes into those stores, whether they were relevant or not. And I think this committee should be the committee that deals with this. And if there's any item that is relevant to the housing committee, then at that time, the housing committee could be brought into that situation. And I think it's not a lot of stuff that you would bring to the housing committee.
All right, so I guess it seems like a VIMA we're trying to get for January. Laura will be in touch for post-January, February, March, who knows. And then Andrew, I'll coordinate with you on the VIMA meeting.
Yep.
And then we'll definitely need other people to be involved in the rest of these meetings as they go on. I don't know. I think we should think about how much outreach needs to happen. I think maybe this is like a question for other powers that be. How much needs to happen in order to feel comfortable to start having conversations with city planning? Susan and Calvin, I'm not sure if you actually know what actual steps needs to happen before that would take place. But that's something I think we should think about as a committee as this goes forward, like how much we actually need to do before we put together whatever this package is.
I don't offhand, and I doubt that Kelvin does because of not going through this process before.
Okay. So I think that's something we'll need to figure out about, like what actually is
Right.
supposed to happen afterwards.
Right.
Would we
Okay.
want to move forward on this, not knowing what city planning will looks like in a couple of months? Or maybe we just do what we do, and at the point that we realize what the makeup of the city planning is based on this new mayor's desires, then we could plan to speak to them. But I don't think we should even broach it right now, knowing that some of those people will probably not be around.
Yeah, I think that's right. All of that will be in flux probably for
Yeah.
quite some time. So I think, again, like, I don't know how long this sort of public feedback session is, or like process will be, but that is something to consider, sort of when the timing is right, et cetera.
So would it be reasonable for us to, for Kelvin and me to wait until January and work with our new liaison to let them know about the project and find out all the steps?
I think that's right. That would be great.
Yeah, I would
I
say
would
that's
agree
right
with
too.
that. Yeah.
Okay, wonderful. Okay, so we have some concrete next steps. Is there anything else anybody wants to talk about with the special district? No, perfect. Okay, the next.
I was just trying to find out if people were talking about how much time it will take with the participants on the board and the Merchants Association to work on this thing. Is it possible that we, the board and the Merchants Association could get together, try to get some funding for somebody to spend more time getting the information that is needed? Is there any funding out there?
That I do not know.
I don't know exactly what specifically we're talking about, like what information.
Well, whatever information we have that you have to put together, it seems like there's not many people who are volunteering that they're going to spend 8 or 9 hours from this committee to put everything together to eventually present it to city planning. And I was just thinking about having somebody who would collate and put together these information, or talk to merchants or talk to Merchants Association, get the information so we could discuss at committee and decided what would go to city planning to ask for their assistance in putting this all together.
Like an intern?
Yeah,
Somebody like an
it could be an
intern.
intern or somebody with this specialized what's his name that left us that was really good on Susan, what's his name again, that used to work with you as an assistant there?
Jim?
Jim. Not
Who's
a-
now,
not a
who's
change.
now, who's now working for NYCHA as a planner?
Yes.
He's not coming back to work for us,
I
but
I know I know that if we could get somebody half as good as he was, that we could pay to.
we have, Calvin is working in the office. So we can devote, he can devote some of his time. It's not, but it's not gonna be able to do everything because it's just too much work.
That's what I'm thinking.
But I would suggest first finding out exactly what we need to do before we decide and how much help we could get. Again, depending on what happens with Carlina in January. But you certainly need board members to be going out and talking to people that, you know, to do outreach that has to come from board members.
So I think that's right. I think we need to wait until January when we have like the new liaison in order to figure out what the process is and how much work that is. And then we can sort of, you know, figure out what the office can handle versus what board members would need to handle versus, you know, if we actually do need additional capacity to sort of move this forward. Okay.
Okay.
I feel like we sort of are in a good place for special district. So the only other thing on the agenda was an arts and culture update. Andrea.
Yes. Hi, everyone. So just a super quick update. We've been spending the last couple of months planning the town hall for December 1st, which is right around the corner. So I'm going to send, I need, my next sort of steps are, our next sort of steps are sending the invites out. But we've decided to, in the past, you know, it's addressed one issue, and this time we are pivoting a bit and taking the opportunity to present, you know, very top line issues, and then get some feedback and some discussion, like somewhat of a listening session and Q&A on particular topics as it relates to arts and culture. And so those topics are pandemic response in the arts, arts in public spaces, particularly the couple of bills regarding open culture in particular, cultural equity in the arts and in Community District 3, and Chara San Mojillo. So yeah, so I can see if I can put the flyer in the chat, which is still being finalized, but it should be done by the end of the week. And, you know, I'll ask for, you know, district office approval on that. And that's about it. Does anyone have any questions?
Do you need the logo or anything?
I believe I pulled it from the website. So
And it's working okay?
yeah. So for some reason I can't like share files. So yeah, I can't show it to you all, but I'm happy to send it in an email.
Okay.
Andrea, was the date December 1st?
Correct, yes.
So was that chosen in relation to December 1st also being World AIDS Day, or there's just no, because that's World AIDS Day and there'll be a lot of things, events going on as well on that day, so.
Okay. It wasn't chosen in relation to that. It was chosen in relation to the fact that it falls on the days that we normally meet. You know, I guess we'll have to make a decision as to, you know, whether to just compete with that or reschedule it.
We already have the council members locked down for that date. I mean, the main reason we chose that specific date was because both council members were free.
I'm not suggesting an alternate date. I was just curious as there was any correlation between the date chosen and the fact that it's World AIDS Day. I mean, it is
I
what
don't
it
think,
is.
I don't think
Yeah.
anyone thought about it.
Okay,
I'm happy to make an acknowledgement about it, though, given all of the AIDS activists that were made pretty significant contributions to New York City's art world as well. So
yeah, I think that would be
Yeah.
be wonderfully appropriate.
yeah,
So I'm worried about the timing of the invites. I think they need to go out tomorrow.
yeah. That was kind of I was planning to get it out earlier this week, but I got a little bit sick, so it threw off
Sorry to hear.
it threw off my week. Yeah.
Are there any other questions for Andrea or about the Arts and Culture Subcommittee? Cool. Thank you, Andrea, for your update. That was it for all of our agenda items. So I'll take a roll call. I'll take roll call to end the meeting. Anisha Stephen, yes. Megan Joy, I believe, is absent. Alistair? Is he still on?
Here. I'm here. Yes.
Andrea?
Here, yes.
Herman?
Yeah.
David?
Yes.
Richard?
Yes.
Rodney? Still here? Rodney, I see. Well, I see your phone. Rodney?
You was
and
there.
he was there. And then Andrew?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you, everybody, for meeting. Short meeting tonight.
Thank you.
I will see you next
Short is good.
time.